today we are going to learn about our final group of Native American tribes, and that is the tribes of the Arctic and the subarctic. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but make sure you brought your winter coat because it's going to get really cold. If it is possible to survive on a piece of land throughout history, people have tried to do so. It is thought that the ancestors of the Inuit, the people of the Thule culture, migrated from Asia to the frozen lands of north to Greenland, Alaska, and Canada about 1,000 years ago. The people of the Thule culture were not the first people to live in the frozen part of the world. The Inuit are descendants of these ancient people, and this read aloud, you will be learning about the ancient people of the Inuit, in addition to more about the Thule. The Inuit actually called the Thule Tunin. This cold part of the world that became home to the people of the Thule culture is known as the Arctic subarctic. The Arctic is a harsh, frozen yet stunningly beautiful place. Just like the other Native Americans you have heard about, the people of the Thule culture originally came from Asia. Like most people who migrated a long, long time ago, the Thule moved from place to place in pursuit of food, shelter, and a land to live in. If you chose to live in a place where much of the land is frozen, an ocean or a lake will have provided many of the things you would need to survive. In particular, the people of the Thule culture relied heavily on hunting a very large whale called a bowhead whale. Every part of the whale enabled the people of the Thule culture to survive. One whale could keep a village alive throughout the entire winter, and you can see in that picture. Look down here. This is actually supposed to be a picture of a man, and look at the size of the whale compared to how small he is. The people of the Thule culture lived in villages of about 6 to 30 houses. The houses were dug on the ground. Whalebone, stone, driftwood, and sod made up the frames of the house. They built homes, or igloos, in the winter months as they moved from place to place, hunting as they went. The people of the Thule culture used dogs to pull sleds made out of driftwood and whalebones. They used the bones and the teeth of the animals they hunted to hunt the same animals. They built boats out of walrus ribs and walrus hides, and hunted at sea in icy water. They used lamps powered by seal and whale oil. It seems that during this period of the mini ice age that swept across the world, the people from the Thule culture found it even more difficult to survive. Once the colder climate came, the ice formed over, and once free-moving ocean, the whales that the people of the Thule culture relied on disappeared. Essential plants disappeared too. Scientists believe that just as other native groups, when faced with great hardship, the people of the Thule culture began to migrate. Remember, that means to move. It seems that they began to migrate east in search of food, shelter, and land. Not all of the people of the Thule culture left, though after many years, another group of people arrived, either by boat or on foot across the frozen oceans. These people joined with the Thule and created a new group. We called these new people the Inuit, and they made their home on the frozen lands of North America. When the Inuit arrived, they brought with them more sophisticated hunting techniques and were more able to withstand the harsh conditions. The Inuit were nomadic hunting and gathering people. Over time, the older Thule culture merged with a new culture, and Inuit became the name of the dominant culture. Interestingly, historians think that it is possible that the Inuits once lived in Greenland and Iceland before moving farther south in the Arctic subarctic region. The Inuit may have encountered Vikings in Greenland, and the Vikings may have left Greenland for various reasons, including conflict with the Inuit. Historians are not completely sure what happened during this part of the Inuit migration. What we do know is that the Inuit culture did take hold, and these people found new and ingenious ways of surviving in such an inhospitable place. Although the Inuit did hunt whale, they also hunted out in open waters, and they relied heavily on fishing, catching seals and walruses, as well as hunting caribou and other small animals. The Inuits hunted the caribou not only for meat, but also for its very warm fur. Caribou fur was used to make all kinds of clothes, from coats to leggings, hats to gloves. Also, unlike other regions of America that you have heard about, it was as is impossible to farm in the Arctic and subarctic. However, during the spring and summer months, it is possible to gather berries and seaweed to collect eggs. These things the Inuit did. The Inuit invented the kayak, which you can see in the picture. They're all in their kayaks. A kayak is a light, one-person boat that can be used for hunting or transportation. An Inuit kayak moves swiftly and silently and was powered by a double-bladed paddle. The Inuit used whalebone for the frame, covering it with stretched animal skin. Then they covered the skins with whale fat. The fat made the kayak air tight. Without the ability to farm, the Inuit had to move across the snow and ice-covered land in pursuit of the animals they hunted. As this became the only way to survive, they perfected a way to travel and a way to build igloos so that they were safe and snug. Just like the people of the Thule culture, the Inuit made well-crafted sleds. Inuit sleds were made out of animal bone and seal rope. The Inuits were skilled dog trainers, and these sleds were pulled by well-trained dogs. In fact, scientists believe that when the mini ice age occurred, it would not have been possible for the Inuit to have survived the frigid Arctic without the stamina and loyalty of the sled dogs. The Inuit took the skills already developed by the people of the Thule culture and developed them even farther. The Inuit trained their dogs not only to pull heavy sleds that could weigh hundreds of pounds fully loaded, they also trained them to sniff out seal breathing holes. The Inuit mostly used male dogs that were hitched together. Inuit dogs could and would also hunt down polar bears. Their technique was to surround an unsuspecting polar bear until their master could kill it. Traditionally in the wintertime, the Inuits lived in igloos. The word igloo is the Inuit word for shelter. The Inuit igloo was shaped like a dome. The igloo had a tunnel entrance that trapped cold air, so it could not enter the main part of the home. Igloos were made from hard blocks of snow. These homes were not made to last because the Inuit moved frequently, hunting and trapping animals. In the warmer months, the Inuits lived in tents made from caribou or sealskin. The Inuits also had a unique way of greeting one another. Although we might greet one another by shaking hands, the Inuit would do so by rubbing noses. And again, look at that. You can see that in the picture. The ancient Inuit people were very talented artists. They carved beautiful animal figures out of bone, walrus ivory, and caribou antlers. They also carved religious images and icons. They made many of their weapons, tools, and utensils this way. Many of the things they carved had religious significance. Like other native tribes, the Inuit believed that all living and non-living things had a spirit. They believed that when the spirit died, it simply moved on to live in another world. In addition, the Inuit believed that the spirits could be communicated with and even controlled by a shaman. Inuit shaman wore masks and specially decorated fur coats when communicating with the spirits. They asked the spirits to bring good health and good hunting. They respected the animals they hunted and believed that when an animal was killed, its spirit went to live in another animal. The Inuits are thought to be the last group of people to have arrived in North America. Because of this, and the fact that they made their home in the frozen north, it could be said that their culture encountered or came into contact with less of the overwhelming influence of the European settlers. As it is true that other groups of Native Americans today, many of the Inuit of today are modern people. Many of them use snowmobiles instead of sleds, and most use igloos, not for their main dwelling, but only as temporary homes on hunting expeditions. Much of their ancient language and customs, however, are still part of their everyday lives. All right, guys, I had such a blast learning all about Native American culture with you guys. And actually, we're going to be starting our brand new unit coming up. So, this is our last read aloud from this unit. And again, this is one of my favorite units, so I'm super excited I got to share with you guys. So, stay tuned to find out what our next unit is. Have a great night, guys.